Welcome to the land of bourbon and bad decisions. This is the Relentless Daring Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Morgan, and here we are engaged in the relentless, daring pursuit of truth, justice, and American jackassery. One of the big things that's happened here in the last 24 hours is the news of the apparent suicide of Jeffrey Epstein. And we are going to go into that because how does a guy who is in jail, supposedly on suicide watch, managed to kill himself? Well, I've got a few articles I'm going to go over going into that. And more importantly, we're going to get into the conspiracy theory world, and we're going to look back at the alleged 400-some people that the Clintons are supposed to have killed or had killed over the years. So that's going to be an interesting look. I've got something I found via Twitter that kind of details some of the people and some of the ways that these victims supposedly died. And there are ones that's like, okay, that seems like a bit of a stretch. Others, it goes, I'm not a conspiracy theorist and buying into some crazy Alex Jones bullcrap here. But some of these, it really makes you stop and think. We'll get into it in just a second. Alright, so really getting into it to start off. I want to go into the Epstein alleged suicide. And I'm saying alleged just because, that's what everyone's kind of going with right now, is that it was the Clintons. How else would they get inside of a correctional center, find a man on suicide watch, and allow him to hang? Yeah, I know. The crazies are out there, and the crazies are going to bite at whatever they want. But, it is what it is. Kind of looking at it. Look at a New York Times article about it. And amazingly enough, it actually let me pull it up on my phone. I think I may have disabled my cookies or something, so they didn't know I'd been here like 100 times. But this is from earlier today, because, he was found dead this morning. But the article's entitled, "Why Wasn't Jeffrey Epstein on Suicide Watch When He Died?" Oh, by the way, I found the hardware to be able to hook a soundboard up, and so now I'm able to make noises. Yay!
No, you look like an idiot.
Well, that was rude. But I digress. So, looking at the article, quote, "Prison officials took the disgraced financier off a suicide watch 12 days before he hanged himself in the cell." All right, I'm going to stop there for a second. Because that's one of the big things that's been floating around Twitter and the rest of the interweb universe all day is, oh my God, he was on suicide watch. How did he kill himself? Oh yeah, I'm going to milk this free program for all that it is worth. But so he had the alleged suicide attempt. Was it 3 weeks ago? And so every day, probably multiple times a day, he's had to talk to a shrink. Like I said, at least every day. Are you going to hurt yourself? 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 So on and so forth. Which if you've never had to do suicide watch with somebody, I've had to do it a couple times with soldiers while I was in the Army. And yeah, they talk to a psychiatrist every day, sometimes multiple times a day, just to get a feel for what that person is going through, what their mental state is, what their emotional state is. So, now, who is to say that maybe Jeffrey Epstein did attempt suicide, because he was rooming with a cellmate who was a disgraced cop. And there were some rumors floating around that, well, maybe the Clintons got a hold of that guy and he tried to strangle Epstein. I don't know. Again, I'm trying to avoid falling into all of the Alex Jones-like conspiracy theories and get stuck in one of those mental traps where everything is the Clintons. Oh my God, it's the darn Clintons.
No, you look like an idiot.
Exactly. But yeah, so he would have been talking to a shrink every day until the shrink determined that, okay, maybe he was in a crisis state, but he's better now, and so we're going to take him off suicide watch. Now, I would like to think that if he was actually suicidal, he would have lied to get taken off of suicide watch, to get put back into the gen pop, or the general population, if it were, as you may, and then taking the opportunity to kill himself. But that is something I don't know. It's something I haven't been able to discover. But, so it was 12 days ago that he came off of the suicide watch. And allegedly he was still being held in solitary, which I don't know how he would have done that in the solitary cell, but then again, I don't know the layout. I don't know what he had or did not have. So I'm making assumptions here, just like everyone else is. But, continuing to, go through the article, quote, like all federal prisons, the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan has a suicide prevention program designed for inmates who are at risk of taking their own lives. Again, a billionaire financier with connections through Hollywood, Washington, D.C., New York State and city politics. I mean, he's have a lot to lose, and as my understanding, there was a huge deck stacked against him. So maybe he was looking for an out so as to not face prosecution. Again, this is me making assumptions. This is not anything that I am basing in any sort of fact that I have read or discovered. This is just me stating my opinion. But yeah, So we know that, Jeffrey Epstein had the suicide attempt, or he was assaulted. Let's keep all possibilities open here. Yeah, it says here in this article, he was placed on suicide watch and received daily psychiatric evaluations. 6 days later, on July 29, Mr. Epstein, age 66, was taken off the watch for reasons that remained unclear on Saturday. 12 days after that, he hanged himself. Guards making their morning rounds discovered his body at 6:30 a.m. on Saturday, according to the Bureau of Prisons. And this is creating a huge stir as far as, well, what happened? Well, I mean, obviously they can't protect people from themselves at all times. They cannot have a guard posted on every cell, every minute, every hour of the day. It's not feasible, but at the same time, if a person is awaiting trial, it's kind of a, thumb in the eye, so to speak, to alleged victims, because now here's a person who they say has done something to violate them and they need to face justice, and they pop smoke and they check out. You can't convict me if I'm dead. But on the plus side, it's not just being brushed off as a, oh well, it's over, nothing we can do about it now. Excuse me. Attorney General William Barr, he said in a statement that he was appalled to learn about Mr. Epstein's death. Epstein, yeah, who cares? He's dead. He ain't going to complain. He died in federal custody, and so he's actually ordered the IG to investigate how he was able to kill himself while in federal custody. And that's going to be going on in that it needs to continue, the criminal prosecution, because in the indictment, he's not just charged with trafficking and sex with minors. He's charged with conspiracy, which means as this investigation goes on, they're going to find more and more people associated with him who can be brought to trial. So, if Bill Clinton actually was having sex with underage girls on the Lolita Express, on those handful of times that he flew without his security detail, and they find evidence that this happened, perhaps Bill Clinton will be brought to justice, as with anyone else who is caught up in this dragnet as they go through and investigate Epstein, posthumously. And if Donald Trump were to be caught in the net, so be it. Let the chips fall where they may, and let Donald Trump have his day in court, and let the prosecution do their best to prove that, yes, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he was guilty of a crime. But until then, everything is assumptions and suppositions and flat-out guessing. I was getting back in the article in the continuation of A.G. Barr's statement, quote, Mr. Epstein's death raises serious questions that must be answered. In addition to the FBI's investigation, I have consulted with the Inspector General, who is opening an investigation into the circumstances of Mr. Epstein's death. End quote. So there's really not a whole lot to really go into here. The article goes on to describe the process when a person is on suicide watch. Reading from the article, it would have been extremely difficult for Mr. Epstein to harm himself had he still been on suicide watch, a second prison official said. Also speaking on the condition of anonymity for fear of dismissal. Can't say I blame him there, but, I digress. Inmates on suicide watch are generally placed in a special observation cell, surrounded with windows, with a bolted-down bed and no bedclothes, an official said. A correction officer, or sometimes a fellow inmate trained to be a, quote, suicide companion, end quote, is typically assigned to sit in an adjacent office and monitor the inmate constantly, And and it goes on talking about how nearly impossible it is to kill yourself while on suicide watch. They'll take shoelaces and belts and this, that, and the other, which I remember in the Army, during basic training, we had a soldier we had to do suicide watch on, and he did not have a belt. He did not have boot laces. In fact, I'm pretty sure they just made him wear his flip-flops because, if he doesn't have access to laces, he can't find a way to create a garrote and hang himself. But it's just really interesting, though, with everything that's gone on with him, that he checked out. Nope, I'm not going to face prosecution. But here in just a second, we will get into the potential ramifications. So, moving forward, one of the big things is how do we find closure for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his ilk? I went to an odd source on this one. Went to Slate, that bastion of conservative thought and expression, slate.com. But Daniel Politi? I don't know. Politi. He wrote a pretty good article on this. It's called "What Happens Now to All the Investigations into Jeffrey Epstein," and it goes into it. The criminal case, the criminal case we know is over. You cannot prosecute a dead man. I mean, you could try. Not going to get anywhere, but you can always try. But basically, what's happening now is all the alleged victims, they can still go after the estate of Jeffrey Epstein and at least be financially compensated for the harm that he has done them over the years, or the harm that they've continued to suffer over the years since whatever happened. Reading into the article, basically, like I said, the criminal case is done. There's nothing else they can do. Well, specifically against Epstein is done. Everything involving him and the fact that he is charged with a conspiracy crime, it means there's leads they could chase down, and they're possibly working on putting together indictments for other people people they can directly tie to Lolita Express and to the island, to the private island. But reading here means there won't be a public trial, and evidence collected via grand jury subpoena won't be released to the public. Details former prosecutor Renato Mariotti. But I'm willing to bet that there's certain things now that they could probably find a judge willing to sign off on unsealing that grand jury subpoena, because if a person goes before a grand jury because they are accused of a crime, and basically a grand jury, the prosecution lays out enough of the evidence to convince a grand jury that yes, there's enough here to go to trial. Then, the grand jury talks about it, and if they determine, we think there's enough here to, warrant a trial, then they will, they'll sign off on it, and then the judge will issue indictments. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because there's a sleeping dog nearby, and apparently she's chasing rabbits and barking at them in her sleep. But so once that grand jury says, yeah, there's enough evidence to go to trial, that's when they will issue the indictment and formal charges are actually pressed against whomever the defendant is. But usually, if there's not enough evidence to warrant a trial, and so they're not going to indict, all that evidence that the prosecutor has, it gets sealed. That way, any testimony given against you, physical evidence given against you, circumstantial evidence given against you, all that stuff gets locked away, and no one has a right to it because you're, theoretically allowed to move on with your life and not have to continue to answer for something that, a court of law said there was no reason to even take you to trial. But a civil case, not so much. Obviously, the civil case is not going to have access to the grand jury testimonies and evidence that was presented to them. However, they do have longtime civil rights attorney Lisa Bloom hard on the case. That's right, Lisa Bloom. You may better know her as that one crazy lady's daughter. I can't even think of her name right now, but her Gloria Allred. Oh, man, how do I forget Gloria Allred's name?
No, you look like an idiot.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. But yeah, so with the civil trial going up against the estate, I'm going to read here from the article. Federal prosecutors said Saturday that their investigation of Epstein remains open. U.S. Attorney Jeffrey S. Berman issued a statement making it clear that the investigation of Epstein remains open, and he encouraged other potential victims to come forward. He said, quote, "To those brave young women who have already come forward, and to the many others who have yet to do so, let me reiterate that we remain committed to standing for you, and our investigation of the conduct charged in the indictment, which included a conspiracy count, remains ongoing." End quote. So, yeah, like I said, everything against Epstein, it's pretty much done, because nothing they do they can prosecute a dead man for. However, the investigation itself remains open because, again, the conspiracy charge, that conspiracy to commit, it's like, with Robert Mueller's investigation, they gave him a wide net in which to, anything that he finds in the process of looking into Russian collusion, he can prosecute. It's the reason why when Ken Starr was investigating something that's actually I want to talk about a little bit later. When Ken Starr was brought in to investigate Whitewater and some of the other Clinton shenanigans back in the 90s, and some evidence surfaced that you were sexually harassing or engaged in an affair with White House interns. And then Bill Clinton perjured himself. And that's where the whole impeachment thing took off from, because Bill Clinton didn't say, I was sleeping with... I don't even think he ever slept with her, but I was doing things that were inappropriate with the fat chick. Bill Clinton got caught on a moped. They're fun to ride till your friends find out you're doing it. But anyways, back to the actual news at hand here. One of the people, she's already come out, said she was angry over the suicide because, where is her justice going to be? But there's really not much she can do other than to go after the estate. Jennifer Araoz, I'm guessing Araoz, she said, quote, "We have to live with the scars of his actions for the rest of our lives. While he will never face the consequences of the crimes he committed, the pain and trauma he caused so many people. Epstein is gone, but justice must still be served. I hope the authorities will pursue and prosecute his accomplices and enablers and ensure redress for his victims." End quote. And, that's the thing. Yes, they're at a loss where they can't really do a whole heck of a lot, but they can still go after, the people like, potentially Bill Clinton, potentially Alan Dershowitz, potentially Donald Trump, whoever. But, and those names mentioned, if they have the ability to press charges against them, I want them to. Regardless of what position they held or may currently hold, if there is evidence that they broke the law in such a horrific and heinous matter, then by God, they should be prosecuted. I don't care what Donald Trump has done as far as, he gave us Neil Gorsuch, he gave us Kavanaugh, but let's not talk about that. Declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel, yada, yada, yada. All the good things, then all the dumb things, all the bad things he's done. Yeah, whatever. But, despite the good stuff Donald Trump has done, if he was engaged in criminal action with Jeffrey Epstein, then yeah, he should be prosecuted. End of story. Doesn't matter what title he holds, what amount of money he does or does not have in his bank account. If he was doing this, he should be prosecuted. End of story. Do you love what you hear on the Relentless Daring podcast? Do you want to show the world your support for this podcast? This is Tyler from Relentless Daring, asking you to go to shop.spreadshirt.com/relentlessdaring and check out our merchandise there. We have t-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee cups, travel mugs. Go there, check it out, and use it to show the world your love of this podcast. And as always, stay relentless. All right, so I said I was going to be getting into the whole Clinton hit list, body count, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, it's not necessarily that I believe that any of this was going on, but it's just interesting. I said I found something on Twitter that, when you, oh my goodness, everything is going stupid. Hold on. Like when you go into Twitter, here's the problem. Is see if I scroll all the way back to the beginning here. Yeah, it's just a long list of different stories about people who mysteriously died who had been in contact with the Clintons or had worked with the Clintons in such a way that they gained access to negative information about them. And yeah, this is an interesting story. Obviously there was, during the election, there was the whole Seth Rich thing, because, Seth Rich had been the person who leaked the John Podesta emails and the DNC emails to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, and then he's killed in a brutal mugging in which nothing was taken. And just some of these stories that it goes on. Richard Cousins, CEO of Clinton-linked Compass Group, he helped to build the Clinton Presidential Library in Little Rock, Arkansas. Also known as Slick Willie's Adult Bookstore, but hey, to each their own. His son Will worked for Open Britain, a group funded by George Soros. Both died in a plane crash the same day as Bruce Steinberg on January 1st, 2018. So I'm already 2 slides into this thing, and I'm already up to 4 dead people. That's crazy. Yeah. There's a journalist, the official report says she died of having a seizure. Perhaps that's true. But a month before, she was providing evidence to Homeland Security and FBI concerning Bill Clinton and doing naughty things with children on a private yacht. I wonder if it was Jeffrey Epstein's private yacht. And it's funny as you keep going through, you find journalists, journalists, attorneys, administration officials, military, and it's crazy. They're saying there's over 400 people. Now, do I believe it really responsible for all 400 of these people's deaths? No, I think some of it's just very, very, very random coincidence. I know there's those of you who say, well, there's no such thing as coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. And yeah, and sometimes that reason is they didn't have a very healthy lifestyle. They have Andrew Breitbart listed as a potential victim of the Clintons. Is it possible that, Andrew Breitbart, he wasn't a small guy. He didn't appear to be a marathon runner of any sorts, or any kind of runner for that matter. He was a hefty dude. Is it not possible that, yes, it's a complete coincidence that, he released information that, showed the world, how bad that John and Tony Podesta were. And then a month later, he dies of a heart attack. I mean, some of this stuff is just, it's so far off the wall. It's really easy to dismiss how, these different conspiracy theories that, Hillary or Bill is responsible for one way or the other. And then there's some of them are kind of compelling. Like Peter Smith, he was a member of the GOP and an investment banker. He was trying to find 30,000 emails that disappeared off the Clinton servers. After announcing he found 5 hacking teams that may have the intel, he was found dead at home. May 14th, 2017. Bag over his head with the helium pump, pumping helium into it. So, as he struggled to breathe, he had a high squeaky voice and apparently had a sense of humor when he died. I don't know. But again, that's one of those, it seems far-fetched, but at the same time, it could be plausible. And it just keeps going on. There's a doctor who visited Haiti, and he was supposedly going to expose the Clinton Foundation for all this money that they were given for medical support that was never spent. You have a key witness in a passport case involving Hillary, Barack Obama, and John McCain. He worked for John Brennan, gained access to Obama's passport. Shortly after which, he was domed in front of his church. It could have just been a random mugging. You never know these things. Again, these are just kind of silly. Here's one guy who a drug company supplied medications to Haiti and Puerto Rico through the Clinton Foundation. And him and his wife were found strangled in their home. And supposedly he strangled her and then somehow strangled himself because, we all start squeezing our throats and just keep doing it till we're dead. We don't have a self-preservation function built into our brains that stops us from doing such horrible things. Unless he just, fashioned a garrote that wouldn't back off and, did it that way. But again, I don't know. I'm just making observations and stating my opinion. And it just goes on and on. Person investigating child trafficking who, allegedly killed herself. We have a woman who may have had knowledge of a prescription drug price gouging under Clinton in Arkansas, where she fell 27 stories down a trash chute into the compactor at the bottom. And again, that's one of those. Seems kind of far-fetched, and it just keeps going on and on and on. I would have loved to have had the time, because I found this one shortly before I began recording. I would have loved to have the time to write down all the ones that I thought were real, all the ones that I thought were bogus, and then all the ones that you read about and go, wait, my brain tells me that it's not true, but some other part of me thinks maybe, just maybe. And again, I'm not going to try to spread some craziness that, it's, again, classic conspiracy theories. You can't prove them, but there's not enough evidence to disprove them either. Oh, excuse me. So, I don't know. This is one of those weird, peculiar things. And then Jeffrey Epstein, again, because of the potential information that he had against Bill Clinton. Who knows? Maybe had something on Hillary, too. I don't know. And he magically winds up dead in his jail cell while awaiting trial. It's one of those things you just can't help but go, huh. And then everyone's been on Twitter is going crazy with the hashtag Clinton body count to the point where someone came up with hashtag Trump body count. Not sure where it came from, but you might want to think about some things before you put it out there, because it's just not going very well at all. Exactly. But I said it's been interesting. Vox has been absolutely apoplectic over the whole, oh my God, all these right-wing conspiracy freaks. Oh, so all you're seeing is the stupid hashtag. And then it doesn't help that Donald Trump was Donald Trump. And he picked up his phone and goes, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to retweet this whole Clinton Clinton body count thing, and we know why he does it. He does it to get a rise out of the other side. And as he showed during the last election, the more he lives in the heads of the media because of alleged wrongdoings or retweeting complete nonsense like hashtag Clinton body count, that the media is going to lose their absolute minds, and they're going to sit and talk about Donald Trump and put his name out there over and over and over again, and it ends up buying free publicity. It's a fool's errand on behalf of the media, but every time Donald Trump plays that card and they come out looking stupid, or like they're just overzealous going after him, and Donald Trump he didn't come out any better, but he certainly doesn't come out any worse. And if the media would just realize, well, we don't have to throw a fit every time he tweets something on the Golden Crapper at 5 o'clock in the morning. We don't have to overanalyze every word that comes out of his mouth to where if he says the word dog, oh my God, did you hear him? He was talking about dogs. You know who else people thought were dogs? The gays. People also thought the gays were dogs, and the blacks, and he hates gay black men because he said dogs. And it's, oh my God. They use intersectionality to create new groups to be offended for. And I don't know, it's just, he's tweeting something that a lot of people buy into, or a lot of people talk about it just because it's interesting. Kind of like the old party game, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. How, if you've never played the game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, a person names a movie and they try to find 6 degrees of separation from that movie to Kevin Bacon, because there's an old sociology experiment that everybody is 6 degrees of separation from everybody else, complete strangers. But it's neither here nor there. Just something that kind of popped in my head as I was going here. But yeah, everyone just going through some of these cases where, oh my God, an Osprey went down. You know who was piloting that Osprey that killed everyone on board? A former Marine One pilot who flew for Bill Clinton when he went to go do something where they may have seen him do something illegal and they had dirt on him. It's stuff like that. Again, Andrew Breitbart, a guy who, he was no friend of the Clintons or the Podestas, but apparently he had information on the Podestas, and they were too close to the Clintons to let them go down. So Andrew Breitbart had to have a heart attack. But there's nothing mysterious about the circumstances of a heart attack. I know there was one person on that list I was looking at. I don't have it pulled up now. Officially died of a heart attack. And people were like, he was in such good shape. He was in such good health. There's no reason why he should have had a heart attack. Well, my mom, she's in fairly decent health. And she used to be in fairly decent health, a couple of years ago when she had her heart attack. She just happens to be in better health now. That's, again, the people playing these 6 degrees of Bill and Hillary Clinton. sounds like a fun party game where hopefully they give you a tinfoil hat to wear with it. But I don't know. Silliness and shenanigans are afoot, and I'm just going to be like the Michael Jackson gif. I'm just going to sit here and eat my popcorn and watch as it plays out. All right, well, I'm going to get ready to wrap this thing up. Again, to all my faithful listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this podcast. It means a lot to me. If you want to keep this thing going, I've been making improvements. As I said, I now have the ability that I could run a soundboard. If I want to do an interview with somebody, I can do that and get it to record. And really, this has been a test run on doing that. So, again, to my Patreon supporter, thank you so much for helping to, keep this thing afloat. Anthony, I'm looking at you. Thank you so very much. If you want to support this on Patreon, go to patreon.com/relentlessdaring1, and you can become a patron today. There's different levels that you can set up. The biggest one, $100 a month. You will get a T-shirt autographed by me. Yes, that's right. I will buy a shirt, autograph it, and mail it to you. If obviously if you do the form to put your address in there. If not, you can send me a message either via Twitter or through Patreon. Because my DMs are always open. You can always get a hold of me through a direct message. I'm not one of those people like, oh my goodness, all the crazies could DM, so I'm going to turn it off. But yeah, you can DM me on Twitter, your address, if that's the route you go. Either or, I'll take whatever support you can get. You don't have to stick with one of the tiers, but the tiers just make it easier for people kind of keep track of what they're pledging. So again, patreon.com/relentlessdaring1 to support me there. Also, I did the played the merch ad that I made. You can go to shop.spreadshirt.com/relentless-daring. I don't know why there's a dash in it. I made it without a dash, and then they did their own thing. Their platform, their rules, whatever. They can make it how they want. But go there. You can buy merch, which I do have the new Relentless Daring RD logo flag design up there on T-shirts right now. So you can get the Truth, Justice, Jackassery shirts, or you can get like I said, you can get the flag. Either or, you can go there, and all this money. My dog is waking up. I'm sorry. All this money, it's going back into the podcast. Because I want to make it better for you, and then maybe it will grow, and I can not have to work to support the podcast, and the podcast will be making me money. But I digress. I hate to put so much of a burden on you all, but please buy my stuff. I'm begging you. Please clap. Please clap. Anybody? Again, thank you so much. Reach out to me on Twitter, either through my personal Twitter at Real Tyler Morgan, or through the podcast Twitter at Daring Podcast. Again, you can DM me anytime. DMs are open. Hit me up. I'd love to hear back from you. Podcast is available. iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Go there. Check it out. For some reason on YouTube, there's a portion of my back catalog that it will not load. I don't know what's up with that. It's a YouTube thing. I don't know. May have to go through and republish some old podcasts. I don't know. But on iTunes, go there. 4 things. If you're listening to it on iTunes, 4 things. First of all, subscribe. Get the subscription numbers up. It helps people find the podcast. Rate it. Give it a 5-star review. Again, it bumps the algorithm, help more people discover this podcast, and brings more people like you and me into the fold to where we can have a unified voice to share our opinions on what's going on in the world. Then review it. Again, people read the reviews. They'll say, oh, well, okay. They say it's, a 4-star podcast, Okay, what do they say? Well, here's what I like about it. Here's what I don't like about it. Blah, 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 blah. Everything helps. So please. And then once you have subscribed, you've rated, you've reviewed. Next up, share it. Share it on Twitter. Share it on your Facebook. Whatever. Let people know it's out there. This is the only way it grows is because of good people like you sharing what I have to say with others because you put that much esteem in me, and I appreciate every bit of it. So, folks, as always, stay relentless.